Welcome back to Long Term. I'm Ty King, and this is the podcast where we talk about the help that we need. How do we get it? Everybody's got some sort of experience, whether it's with some sort of trauma, whether you've been to prison, whether you've had substance abuse issues, or you've experienced something just because you lived life, right? I think all of us have something that we try to overcome, that thing that sits on our back or on our shoulder that we, sometimes you try to run from it, but also there's a lot of people that have learned how to use it as a strength. And how to counterbalance it. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. If this is your first time to Long Term, welcome. And you can find all of our podcast episodes on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you consume your podcast. You can also see the video version on YouTube. If you're returning, thank you for tuning in again. Make sure that you share this episode with somebody who could benefit from the message that we're going to share here today with my very special guest, Anika. And I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Anika Dixon, founder of SHEBuild, which stands for supporting her empowerment through building. I like to say building of the woman internally and externally.
Right. And right off the bat, SHEBuild is great marketing. I like the name. The name is
people
great.
have loved the name, so thank you.
It's easy to remember. It's like it tells you what the message is and what it is you're trying to accomplish. So getting into that, so what is SHEBuild at its very core?
At the very core, great question, and thank you for asking. Long story short, we're here to expose, teach women non-traditional employment. And so people ask, what does that mean, Anika, board and volunteers? What that means is that when a woman is being released that's justice impacted or, she's served time, been in prison, however you understand the terminology, it is to teach her career skills that typically men are doing when she's released so that she can make, starting out, in my mind, $17+ an hour so that, earnable wage, livable wage, and then be able to take it from there because she oftentimes has to, I like to say within 24 hours, she has to regain not only her womanhood, but her motherhood.
Right. Right. So there's a lot of responsibility coming out to, if no matter what time you spent inside a prison or justice involved. Justice impacted. Yes. Several organizations have changed their language around it recently, too. And I think it really helps with the stigma that kind of comes with, rather than say somebody's an ex-con. You know what I mean? Which is rated derogatory and comes with so many different other attachments. But saying somebody's justice impacted, of course. But no matter how much time they've spent, behind bars, whether it is a few months or years, coming out and trying to be a parent again after what you've just experienced and plus that time apart. And of course it does something to the children. Like that's a huge job.
It really is because you, according to statistics, and they may be fresher now, but 26 months is where you become a true student of the system, to put it nicely. And so you think, okay, 2 years, I've been here 2 years, and so now this is home. And so that changes your mind, that changes so many things. Even if you've been on this earth 2+ decades, you go in there and you go to the system, and it becomes survival of the fittest. And I'm learning how that can look at different times. But the women, sometimes it's respite for them, which is very interesting because this is a question that I like to ask people, Ty. What is a situation, there are a couple of questions. What is a situation where you would have been incarcerated? The average person has a story. Sure. And because I am allowed to be a safe space for them, they share their stories. And I've heard some stories, or it may not be them directly, but it's a family member. And we're talking from bank executives to, just so many different people. And then the other question I ask, which really hits home for women, and I've cried, they've cried, it's just been an emotional roller coaster at times, is what did the 10-year-old, 14-year-old girl want for herself? And recently there was a young lady, and she said, I think I asked 14 to that group, and she said, I don't want to think about 14 because I was on drugs. I was basically taking care of myself at 14. And I'm thinking, oh my, I thought my mom was, crazy or whatever else, but I'm
Right.
like, I'll go back.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, where was a healthy place for you? And she said, maybe about 9.
Wow.
9 years old was a healthy place that was a halfway safe place for you. So anyway, yes. So tough stuff. I mean, we are experiencing some good stuff also. Some really, well, anyway, I'll keep talking. So this is your show. I'm a hush.
No, it's great. You're here to talk about what you do. Yeah, for sure. No, and I like that question. Like, where's the time when you would have been, incarcerated? You know what I mean? Because I've interviewed so many people that are in law enforcement and even people who are lawmakers, and they'll say, well, the difference between me and most of the people that we deal with is they got caught and we didn't. I mean, at a certain time in place.
Yes.
And so everyone's had,
Yes.
something. We don't like to talk about it because it's not comfortable.
It's not. It's not comfortable, but it also makes you more, I say, sympathetic and empathetic, because when you slow down and you think about that, and like your guests have said, we weren't caught. And so you
Right.
think about that, it's like, okay, well, at what point, and hopefully I'll never be caught, but guilt by association, going back to, I met someone years ago, and you think, okay, if I continue hanging out with that person, could I have caught the charge? Could they have put the charge on me? There are so many situations out here that
sure.
you're thinking, oh my, to put it nicely.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And very few systems put in place to help you if you were caught in that situation. Once you get out, even for these mothers that are being released, very few programs exist to help them through the process of healing from what they've been through, and sort of reestablishing their motherhood, but their womanhood, but also. Before we started recording, you were talking about a lady that had 11 kids.
11, yes.
And then was incarcerated, and then came out and had to start being a mother again to 11 kids. I can't even imagine that.
11 children. She had been incarcerated several times. And so it's, another thing. And I started saying this when I was doing work 5 plus years ago. You get out, Mom. Don't have any more children right now. Because if you have children, I have 2, they're 30 and 27, and you love your babies, but babies are so selfish. And that's why it takes us 21 plus years to become an adult, quote unquote, because there are so many cycles, there's so many learning curves as humans that we develop into. So you're this newborn baby, and we have to, as the parents, take care of you. So there's a term, and I've got to look this up to see if it's true, Ty, but I call it womb trauma. And so what I'm seeing is the grandmother experienced trauma, the mom experienced trauma. Now I am experiencing trauma. My daughters and children make literally womb trauma. And so what happens in the womb, because I am a mother and I've given birth, is I would always say, okay, don't give me bad energy. Don't give me negative energy. And just think. I just went over 4 generations possibly of womb trauma.
Yeah.
That's a lot. If we think about that,
No, for sure.
Have any of your guests talked about that?
No, that's the first time I heard about that, and it's actually the first time the concept has been introduced. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
It really does. And so, because you just think, because do you have any children?
I do, yes.
Okay, so you just think when you and your significant other, that healthy, that positive vibe is needed. There's a lot that's needed in order for once we, go through the canal and we're born, in order for us to stay healthy, in order for us to stay positive. So even if it was generations before and there was unhealthy environments, what's happening now to us?
Oh yeah, it definitely goes forward. Yeah, for
Yes.
sure. A lot of the the abuse I experienced as a kid was because my dad had gone through the same thing with his father, and he would even tell stories about the same thing, and that's why he does what he does. And it's like it's hard to break that cycle. And like, sometimes if you just don't put the energy into changing it, it's just going to stay the same or get worse.
You're right.
And you're going to pay it forward.
That's so very true. And you talk about abuse. I mean, I have my stories with that also. And I remember my dad asking me, how will you discipline your daughters? And I said, because both of them, when he asked that question, I said, these two girls are totally different, and they should be. And so one, the oldest, strong-willed, just, oh my goodness, talked a lot, very intelligent. Both the girls are smart. The youngest had this quiet intelligence that her space had to be protected. And so you think, okay, as children, if we don't make the decision to do something different, then what does happen?
Right.
And then who is protecting us? And so I see women that, so when I go to McPherson, I'm standing up and they're sitting down, and it's like this, audience, but you see so much in their eyes. Like I can see the ones that are like, why the hell is she here? Or I see the ones that are like, okay, she's got something to say, and maybe SHEBuild can help. And you just see all of this, but then you also see I'm typically there about 2 hours. And so it takes about 30 minutes or so. And I'll tell the ladies, I said, ladies, I'm not much different from you. Of course, I'm a woman like you are. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a mom. I'm a wife, blah, blah, blah. And I said, we're all women. And I said, I will cry. I said, if something hits me, hopefully I won't cry with you today. But if something hits me, I said, I'll cry. I'll laugh. I said, if you see me cry in about 10, 15 minutes, then I get back tough. And they literally have been like, oh, okay, she just cried a little bit, but then she just got tough with it. and so what it does, it allows them. I remember when I was doing the training, when I got, authorized to go into the prison system and do SHEBuild work. And so you get the training, and the trainer was like, okay, don't show emotion. Don't do this. Don't do that. And I'm like, who is so tight? It scares some of my volunteers. I told them the same thing that I was told, but because I had been there 2+ decades ago, I was thinking, it ain't that bad. And so, like my husband, my dad, some of my female volunteers, they were like, you mean to tell me I can't be myself? Ty, I have so been myself. I literally have been myself. And it allows, when the women get out, they want to communicate. Right. They want to continue. Like there's this one, she was there. I met her 6-7 months ago. And so she got out almost 2 months ago. And that was what she was like, hey, I'm home, let's see. And I think sometimes they also, because I let the ladies know, most of us haven't been incarcerated, so we don't know your true walk. But why do we have to know your walk to know we don't want you to come back here? When I'm talking to the ladies there at McPherson, I say, let someone else, unfortunately, occupy these seats. You don't have to occupy these seats anymore. And they're like, okay. And these are women that have been there 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And I'm thinking, is the food good? What's going on? Why you keep coming back here? Yeah.
It's not the best cruise you took in your life. You
no, I don't think it was a cruise at all.
Season pass tickets. Right. No, it's none of that. A lot of people just aren't getting the resources that they need to help them change or make them want to change. And it's great that you're authentic whenever you go in and you're talking to people who are incarcerated, because by being your authentic self, you've seen the results of that, where people do want to continue to connect, or they're inspired by that. I've talked with so many people that have been incarcerated that feel like it's probably does more harm than good whenever you have like a lot of churches have prison ministry teams that will go in, right? And they'll talk to the prisoners, and hey, they'll love on them. Hey, they'll make them feel good in the moment and say, hey, God forgives you, and we're going to be out there. We're going to root for you. And like, this is not the end of your life. Like, you got so much to live for. We're praying for restoration for you and all this. And then they get out, and then they try to go to that church, and like those people are like, oh. Good luck, man.
Yes.
But
yes.
But we're doing our own thing over here, and so they're sort of shunned, and so it's like all that
not
hope,
sort of they
the hope,
are.
the hope that they had, that people from the outside world that weren't in their incarcerated circle were pouring into them, and they were like, okay, well, these people are investing in me. It's something worth for me to go back and try to get more of that when I get out, and see how I can build my place in society. And then they get out, and then they're shined right back again. So it can send them spiraling. You know what I mean? Because it takes that hope that they gave them, and kind of makes it harder for like those other women you were talking about that are looking at you like, okay, what are you going to talk about? Why are you here? You know what I mean? They're skeptical anyway. They don't know who to trust.
Yes.
And by every right, that makes sense. That kind of leads up to why they get incarcerated anyway. A lot of things happen to them, and then at some point you just don't know who to trust, and you feel like something's happened to you. But yeah, for someone to be coming in authentic and to pour into them, that's great. I love what you're doing with SHEBuild. It was really interesting. That's why I asked you to come on the show to talk about that. Yeah, absolutely. So I do want to know what is the difference, the biggest difference between a woman who's trying to reenter society than a man?
Okay. Don't have your audience,
Nobody's coming for you. No pitchforks.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've even talked to men about this. When a man gets out of prison, he has some feminine energy that's there to help him, whether it's his mom, it's his baby mom, it's his grandma. There's some female oftentimes that's there to allow, okay, get yourself together. I'm here. I'll give you a time frame, but, let's get it together and we're here. But when a woman gets out, no, she is, oftentimes it's her mom. Hopefully the children haven't been in the system, but it's her mom that's taking care of the children. And she is, mom is tired. Mom was tired long ago, okay? So now I have to take care of my grandkids. I have to take care of your kids, and I don't want to do this. So, yeah, you need to get your stuff together. Well, I don't know how to get my stuff together. That's why I've been incarcerated back and forth. And so hopefully what we've seen and what the biggest support with SHEBuild, when a woman will allow us to, is a support. Do we have a lot of money? Can we write them $1,000 checks? No, and we're not going to do that because that's not what she needs.
Right.
She needs that cheerleader because oftentimes she's burnt so many bridges anyway, which is so unfortunate.
Right.
I've met so many women that they have literally burned so many bridges. I've got success stories, and then you look, okay, recidivism can hit up to 36 months. So I'm thinking in my mind, I go 6 months, I go 1 year, I go 2 years. I can go back to prison. Something can happen up to 36 months, which is crazy to me. If you've been living like that, but I also see the factors of women, they've been incarcerated several years, and the minute they get out, they have a nicotine attack. And I'm thinking,
Really?
You've been not smoking.
Right.
You've not been able to do any of this unless there's something you hadn't told me. And it is like, we were talking about those little monkeys on the back. I guess, I've been very fortunate, Ty, to not, am I perfect? Heck no. But not to have those monkeys on my back like that because, it gets really, really tough. And so when they're dealing with all of that, there's a lot. So going back to your question, so with the woman, I'm going to give an example, and I give this to the women. So because I've been in housing for so long, a man will call, and he knows that, my company will help, if the situation makes sense. We don't, house everybody, but if the situation makes sense, got to have a job, got to, everything else. He'll call and he'll say, hi, I'm Ty, and I told, that you do help ex-offenders, or however they state it. And so I'm looking for housing. And so, okay, well, how long have you been out? How long have you been working? And we're just having a conversation. When the woman gets out, and even if she has a job, she's calling about housing because that's what she's calling about, the office. And she's like, okay, hi, I'm Anika, and I'm looking for a house, and I got 3 kids, and we immediately hear her anxiety. And I am saying, sis, take a deep breath before you get on the phone with us or anybody else and be calm.
Yeah.
Get yourself together, because if you can't sell yourself to yourself, how the heck are you going to sell it to anybody else? And they're like, okay. So there's so many just obstacles. And I guess, were you guys just born confident? Is that men were just born confident and we
Right.
weren't? Because we literally hear that. And I talk to the women about that. And so SHEBuild has been able, we have a program, it's called Let's Restart. And we're so blessed to be able to connect with the women sometimes day one, day two when they're out. And this is oftentimes when they're at a chem-free house. There's a chem-free house that we have a great relationship with. And so that program is 6 to 8 weeks, and it covers financial management, how to buy your first car or buy a new car. We do journaling, we do mental health, we do job readiness, how to interview, how to dress for an interview, all of these life things. But then, in the end, when they're graduating, I do self-care. I'm talking throughout, time, but I ask the women, how does self-care look for you? Now we've been together 6 to 8 weeks, and Ty, so many women don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Or it's the very things that I am so blessed to really take for granted. And so just SHEBuild, every time we've done 3 of those programs now, and it has been, we bring in community volunteers, we feed them dinner. They love the dinners that we feed them. They're like, can y'all keep coming back? We're like, no, the program has ended. But it's going back to being a cheerleader, being this support system that, and what's even more interesting about this, because when I was doing this work, first exposed to this work, there were more African American women, Black women, than there were white women at McPherson and at the prisons.
Wow.
And it has flipped. And so most of our volunteers with SHEBuild, most of us are Black. They look like me. Most of our women that we serve look like you. And the volunteers, I think even the women, because the women are coming from these very rural, towns. I was born in Ashdown, Arkansas, and so spent many summers. I call myself a city country girl.
Okay.
And
so that's a very small town in Arkansas.
It is.
Yeah.
Ashdown is, but then my maternal grandparents were in Wilton, so that was like no stop signs.
Okay.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
I say one dog, one chicken, and 2 families.
Yeah.
And so because the women come from very rural, remote areas like that, they've never hardly dealt with Black people.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And so sometimes, and I just haven't had the moxie to ask, how does this feel?
Yeah.
Does that question make sense?
Right.
But you know what? It doesn't even matter, because they see our hearts are so pure that it's like, it doesn't even matter. This is my family. They'll pop up at the office. They pop up at the real estate office sometimes. So now we got to start doing etiquette classes. And, so we're learning constantly what the women need. But it's just, we're family now. We are.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Recently I was working on another project, with another organization, talking about, juvenile justice, and it's like where kids sort of fall into the justice system. A lot of it had to do with COVID, but a lot of the kids that are being incarcerated or getting in trouble one way or another, their parents were incarcerated at some point. Yes. Right. And so there's that cycle that we're talking about. Is. But something I had never thought about was, the different pressures of, the men versus the women, the fathers and the mothers. When a man is incarcerated, and let's say that he's married and has children, then you're putting all those children, like you only have one parent that's left out there, right? So he doesn't, basically his parenting duties are over while he's incarcerated, right? And so it's all on the mother. And if the mother was also on drugs or doing whatever, then lots of times they're sent to DHS. And then there's this whole battle of trying to get your kids back once you finally get the reins of your life back in your hands.
It really is.
And then that can be almost impossible to get your kids back from, the foster system. and they're getting passed
It is.
around.
I've seen that, but then you wonder also. We had one woman, she got out a few months ago, and she went back to her mom, and all of her children were in the system. And so then it makes you wonder, what's the real story? What's a deeper
Right.
story? We talked about, I think before, we went live, womb trauma. That's an example. And just to kind of recap for
Right.
your audience, grandmother, even deeper, didn't have a dad around, didn't have that male figure, because children need balance. There is no doubt about that. They
Sure.
need male female balance. They need, positive, negative, good cop, bad cop. So if grandmother didn't have that,
Yeah.
mom didn't have that, I didn't have that, and now my daughters don't have that. What happens? And so womb trauma, deep, even before I was even known about, there was some trauma that was happening deep in the womb. And so if that continues, going back to what you were stating, if there isn't quote unquote healthy balance,
Yeah.
then what does happen? And we continue these cycles. I've seen that over the years, and it's just like, at what point are you going to say there is a problem here, and
Right.
I can stop the problem if I choose to? Or, because I wonder, and I have asked women that, why I keep coming back here. And I had one woman, she said, prison really isn't that bad. She literally, I was sitting next to her at the Kim Free House, and she said, it really wasn't that bad
Right.
for me. And so it made, you really, I say, thank you, God, for your grace and mercy, because there's some stuff out here, and just we as SHEBuild volunteers, we've heard some of the deep stuff, but then we've heard just enough where we don't really have to hear any deeper, because
Right.
that was enough.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Or if you're finding comfort in going to prison, there's something very wrong. It really says something about, the state that we live in Arkansas, where we have more juvenile facilities in the state than we do adults. But there are more kids, quote unquote prisons around the state, which sometimes they're more hardcore than the adults. I've been in a couple of them and done some interviews in there. I'm like, these kids really don't care. Like there's
But
just
who cared for
nothing to
them?
give. Yeah, right.
When
right.
when we don't get cared for, then what do we? Why do we have a reason to care?
Right.
Because love is foundational. Being nurtured is foundational. And so if we didn't get that, then the children that when you were in these facilities, and I've had clients, I've never been in the facilities, but I've had real estate clients that have worked in the facilities, and they'll, just kind of share some things. And I'm like, these babies. I mean, even if you're, in my mind, me being entering mid 50s, if you're 15, 16, 17, I'm sorry, you're still a baby. We're still supposed to be taking care of you.
Right.
And when you're in a facility like that, what happened? Yeah. Why are you here?
Right.
Why aren't you being nurtured? Where's your village?
Exactly. I wonder, for those parents or even the mothers that are getting out, like maybe they get out before their child even is out of their facility. Yes. Whenever those arrests happen. And then very recently went to the one in Alexander,
yes.
the juvenile detention center,
yes.
and talked to them. And there were some kids in there that they were ready to be released like over a year ago. But it matters on your behavior. Even if you're past the limit that the judge said that you were supposed to be staying in there, it matters on your behavior, but it also matters if you have anywhere to go.
Yes.
After your time is up, and if you just don't have anywhere that you can parole or go into probation, I don't know what they call the term, but I guess parole out is what they're doing. But to go home to, if you don't have anywhere to go home to, once your term is up, then the state can legally keep you until the time that you're 18 years old. And then if you go in at 15 years old and you're only supposed to do a year, that's 2 extra years in a juvenile detention center. And then, like I said, it's every member of the family is getting affected whenever these things happen.
Yes.
And so there absolutely needs to be specialty organizations like what you're doing, which is you're focusing on the mothers. You're focusing on the women.
We do. And people ask, well, what about the man? Yeah. What about him?
They've got organizations out there for that too.
Right. But even when you talk about housing, my bread and butter, how I pay my bills, is housing, okay? So even when you look at the housing, there are quite a few male facilities, chem-free housing, independent living house, but not as many female. And so even when you talk about that, because when you're talking about the youth, same thing with their mom, because if she doesn't have a proper parole plan, I don't have a proper parole plan. I could have gotten out 3, 4, 5 months ago. I don't do drugs. I never been never done weed in my life, marijuana, whatever you want to call it. Never been a big drinker. And so you know what I'm going to say, Ty? Because I don't want to be in here anymore. I've done my time. Okay, deuces. I'm going to say, hi, I'm Anika, and I have a drug and alcohol problem, so that I can at least go to a chem-free house and get out of here and start pressing restart.
Right.
Because I don't want to be here anymore. This is a toxic environment. I should not have been here at first. Okay, let's get it together. But just like the children, so if he or she, the baby, as I call them, they don't have a place to go. Their mom doesn't have a place to go.
Yeah.
Where is everybody?
Right.
How does the family reunite? Where does reunification come? Talking about, the mom, I ask the women, when you are here, especially if they have children that are, younger, let the baby stay where they are. 6 months plus. In a perfect world, Ty, a year. Oh my goodness. I have a good friend, and she got her master in social work in Georgia, and they have programs up to 24 months. Just think. 24 months of me getting myself together. And it's still, in Anika's perfect world, I want some independent living houses. And so it will allow the woman, when she gets out, to reunite who her womanhood is, okay? Who she is as a woman, who I am as a woman. And then we go into back motherhood. Because even, I've met so many women who have adult children, but because he or she, the kiddos, they're upset. And that's not the word I wanted to use, okay? The kids are upset. And I don't care, if I had been in and out of prison, my daughters being 30 and 27, they would have every right to be PO'd at me. They really would, because I'm supposed to be here to protect you. I'm supposed to be the good example. And I like to listen to the stories. I love, just sitting back. I'm a talker, as you can tell, but I also like to listen. And so I say, how old are your children? Do you have grandchildren?
Sure.
And they have, I don't think I've met a great-grandmother, but I have met many grandmothers. And the children, and they're excited. Oh, my son and my daughter, they're going to let me see my grandbaby for the first time. And I'm just listening, and I'm going, man. Some tough stuff.
Yeah.
When the mom is incarcerated, that's a major piece of the village broken down. It really
Absolutely.
is a major piece of the village. We have all of these pieces. When I was doing work for Centers for Youth and Family, and that's how I initially got into first time walking into prisons like that and working with women. You look at this and you think, okay, when she's gone, we were doing CBCLs, and it was tracking the traumas of the children. I remember telling my sister one time, you cannot give away my nephew, her son, dog. She'd given away 2 dogs. You can't give away, because when you're doing a CBCL, that's like a death.
What does that stand for?
I don't want to lie. We'll look it up.
We'll look it up. We'll put it on the screen.
Yeah, we'll look it up.
CBCL.
See,
Okay.
And so it was literally tracking the traumas of the children.
Okay.
And so, during that time, I think we had lost our mom, and so nephew had lost grandmother that he was really close to, 2 dogs. I mean, it's a lot of things. When we were tracking these traumas with oftentimes the grandmother, I was like, whoa. Probably if I did the CBCL on my daughters now, there would be some traumas that I would be like, what the? Yeah. So it's always, but going back, when the mom when she's gone, there's a lot. Of course, fathers are important too. My dad was in the household. My daughters know how to, what it is to have a great dad. But
Mm-hmm.
it's, I look at all these girls, and, the sad part about that, if you've got male listeners, and I know you do, if they're not involved in their children's lives, press restart. I was
Yeah.
talking to someone recently, and I was wanting to get in contact with the mother who was just as impacted. And I said something, and I said, well, can't you guys' son that you have together reach out to her? And the son is knocking at 40. He said, I don't really talk to him. And so I got real quiet.
Yeah.
And people know me. When I get quiet, they're like, okay. And he goes, we're working all the time. And I'm thinking, okay, what is that about? It's like your children. I mean, I'm going on 54. I still need, my mom passed years ago, but I still need and want to talk to my dad. And,
Right.
even though I act just like him, and sometimes we're two bulls in a china cabinet. And so, but you still want and need that. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Important rules. You said a lot just then.
I mean, it's the truth. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
the truth.
absolutely. And what you're doing is great work, of course.
Thank
And
you.
I'm glad that you have the heart. And it takes so many people to have a special heart, but it's like so rare and few between. But I think the individuals that have such a compassion for so many other people in that position, like we don't need one for one. You know what I mean? Like, or it would be nice to have 100 Anikas for 100 people that are getting out to be incarcerated, but one of you is enough for a couple dozen at least to be really, really, really impacted.
Yeah, I'm enough energy
Yeah.
for a
Yeah,
couple
yeah, yeah.
dozen.
Right. So very, very grateful every time I meet somebody like you.
Thank you.
I wanted to talk a little bit about your fundraiser that's coming up,
Yes.
the brunch.
Yes.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
I do. I
Okay.
can always
Of
talk
course
about
you can,
that.
yeah.
So it's our brunching to build because
Okay.
it's SHEBuild. And so this is our second annual brunch. And so last year it was the inaugural, and that was an exciting time because people didn't know what to expect. It allowed the community to know what is SHEBuild, what is this about.
Right.
And so that was good. But this year, we're kicking it up a notch, okay? We are kicking it up a notch. It will be at City Center. It will be on Saturday, May 3rd, which is right around the corner. It'll start at 11 a.m. From 11 to 12, we will have our mocktail social hour. Have you ever been to a mocktail social hour?
I've never known.
Well, you're going to have to come, okay? And the reason we did that because it's being hosted at City Center, which is on the campus of Emmanuel Baptist Church at 315 North Shackelford. So where the old Kroger is, if you're from here on Shackelford, behind like that Backyard Burger area. And so...
That's Little Rock if you're not familiar with
Oh,
where that is.
sorry. Yeah, Little Rock.
Little Rock, Arkansas. Yes.
And so Emmanuel didn't allow alcohol. Last year, we were at a hotel and we had alcohol. And we had some of our SHEBuild women there. Ty, that was interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
It
sure it was.
It was interesting because it was like, okay, do you offer them alcohol? Because they're
Right.
grown women, okay? But you don't know the monkeys on their back.
Right,
And so
exactly.
does this one glass of champagne start the
Escalating. It's snowballing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so it was perfect. And so I said, okay. So some of our volunteers like, well, people love to drink. You cannot not drink for a few hours. So I said, we're doing a mocktail. So
Right.
we're still, the spin on it. So that's going to be fun. And it allows us to network. I did mention I have a book that came out, Dreams in Waiting.
Oh, wow.
And so that we'll talk about the book some. So I'll have the book for
Okay.
sale there. And then we'll go into we have an MC that's one of our local DJs, radio DJs. And so that'll be good. And so for the next 2 hours, we will have community leaders that will be supporting us. We have sponsors. And then the women that we serve, they will do a runway fashion show. They are super excited. It has been so fun because SHEBuild has a closet. I did not know, God did not let me know all that we needed.
Okay.
And so you think about your closet. Do you have a lot of clothes? Okay, so probably way too many clothes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I was just looking at it yesterday. I was like, I need to get rid of some of this stuff. Yeah.
So just think, if we reuse what we say is our restart clothes closet. So the women will be using or modeling clothes that are restart items. And we're talking beautiful, like the nightgowns, not nightgowns. There was Freudian slip there or something.
Yes, not that kind of fashion show. It's a
No,
little
not
different.
that kind of fashion show. But the after 5 gowns are beautiful.
Right.
Oh my goodness. So we'll do SHEBuild, that vision. So the initial show will be them coming out in work, non-traditional employment attire. Then they'll do kind of a date night, fun night attire.
Okay.
And then they will do their after 5. And heels, that's been fun to see because some women never wear heels. So we're like, okay, well, we got to find some gym shoes. So it's been so fun. But they have had a wonderful experience with getting that SHEBuild energy in a whole different way. And some of them want to keep the clothes. So I have a few too many clothes and a few too many closets. Yeah. So don't be agreeing with me.
So I can see that. Look at this wonderful outfit you have on today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But and so I pulled out some of my pieces, still had tags on it, and I'm like, oh, Heidi can wear this, and oh, Sarah can wear this. And so yesterday we were at Hope House, which is the Kim Free house, and the women were trying on the clothes. And so they were trying on clothes. You saw their confidence. It was like, and then we were like, okay, where's your runway? And so God said this morning, he said, one asked for outfit I hadn't even worn. I thought I was going to look cute in it, Ty. Well, she goes, oh my gosh, this makes me look so good. I'm about to cry. So I'm looking, and so she goes, can I have it? I said, girl, that's out of my closet. I hadn't even worn it. You took the tag off.
Right.
And so we just kind of looked. We just locked eyes for a moment. So God said this morning, you know what, Anika? I have blessed you so much. Give her that outfit.
I'm sure she was appreciative of that. Yeah.
No, she didn't know yet.
She didn't know yet.
Nope.
Okay. All right.
She didn't know yet. We're gonna announce. There were a few pieces out of my closet, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, your clothes are great." I said, "I'm glad my husband isn't here to hear this crap."
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so, no, that's going to be part of the surprise. The clothes that, if they want those clothes that they're modeling, they can have them.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, thanks.
That'd be great.
Hopefully they're not listening, and now they know.
They won't know.
Okay.
Let's hope. Don't let them know this is coming out before your fundraiser.
But yeah, so that is, so again, Saturday, May the 3rd, and they can go, we have Facebook page, we have Instagram, now our website is SHEBuilding, so it's SHEBuilding.ing.com, and so SHEBuild was taken, so I guess somebody else thought it was a little bit cooler before I did, and so, but SHEBuilding.com, they can purchase tickets, they can reach out, to me, our phone number is area code 501-621-0441. Yeah, I think that's the number. I think that's the number.
I hope so. If you get a dial tone,
then just go to
SHEBuilding.com.
SHEBuilding.com.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
So this has been great.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Before we go, I do want to get your take. I sort of ask everybody at the end, because there's we've sort of talked around it. We haven't directly talked about, but like whenever somebody's coming into recovery from some sort of a traumatic event, right?
Okay.
Whether there's resources that they need, there's help that they need, there is a certain self-esteem that you need, which a lot of the women, you've felt that whenever they put the clothes on, like it makes them feel good and set, and like, you know what, I've got more confidence now to I can sell myself to me and then start selling myself to other people because of that. But it looks different for every person. It looks, the resources that we need and what that recovery looks like and our mental health. And so like our needs are different. So I want to get your take. What is a long-term solution to what you're trying to solve with these women?
Man, that's a great question. Long-term is that support. There is no doubt on behalf, SHEBuild has seen firsthand being the cheerleader for that woman like she's never had before. Knowing that, okay, just because I haven't physically walked in your shoes, it's okay because you know what? I'm going to give you my shoes to walk in to give you a new approach to life. That starts, it's also those livable wages. there's nothing wrong with, and we need to, state of Arkansas, we've got to increase these wages. I'm a small business owner, so there's a fine dance with that also. But when you're talking about, education, there are women, Ty, that I have met, and they've been in prison for years. I'm wondering, why didn't you get your GED?
Yeah.
So you're talking about, I'm not here to bash our prison system, but let's make this story really make sense, because at what point does this stop being such a business and we take care of our human brothers and sisters? Because I'm sorry, you first walk into the four walls, as I call it, inside the prison. What does this game plan look like? What does your case management plan look like? Because if we can start here, and I let the women oftentimes know, don't occupy these seats anymore. So we have a plan, and by the time I'm reaching them, that's 18 months, and sometimes they only have a few months left. And so we can do better case management, but then, it starts well before that. I've always said education starts at home. My husband and I have never depended on the teachers to truly educate our girls. That started at home, and we are a team. We are a village to do that. So, gosh, that's a major question. I don't know if anybody's been able to properly answer that. I'm sure you've had some super, like, triple PhD people that have been able to answer that as guests. But it's about me saying, I think, going back to, sis, you can walk in my shoes and know that it's okay, and know that press restart. I'm an early morning walker. And I'm talking very early in the morning. And I needed to do that this morning because I needed to reset myself. And so be okay with knowing, even if you've been incarcerated 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, I've met women, let this be your last time. And let an organization, if it's not SHEBuild, an organization similar to ours, get with a healthy village. Quit going back to that funky, messed up, nasty village that you keep going back to, because I know that is where your level of comfort is. But if you keep doing the same thing, how comfortable? Get uncomfortable, sis.
Right.
Get uncomfortable, because no, that hadn't worked for you. And so hopefully an organization like SHEBuild can be around this. There have been people around the state that have asked us to expand. Right now, we're just in Pulaski and Saline County because, Ty, we need to be able to touch the women. They need to be able to touch us. And so with that, just let's know that our women are so important in our village, and we've got to love and nurture and take care of them so that they can love and nurture and take care of themselves and then their future generations.
Well said.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anika, thank you so much for coming on, thank you for what
me.
you're doing again. I know I've said it several times, but what you're doing is so incredibly important.
Thank you.
And wish your organization so much, prosperity and growth in the very near future.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
this
We
brunch
need
is it,
Yeah,
right?
this brunch is
this
it,
brunch
because
is
the
gonna be it.
brunch will help with our first independent living house. I didn't say that. And so that's what the fund.
Oh, that's what it's for.
That's what it's for,
Okay.
because we probably in the past year could have had successfully, hopefully, about 3 different independent living houses. Not Kim Free, because that's not our lane, but independent living houses, because she's leaving prison, then she's going to possibly a Kim Free house. She needs to be learning independent living. And so that will be the next step, and then she'll go to her own place.
Right.
Or I'll sell her a house or home.
Okay, great. So independent living, meaning that it teaches or gets them set to be independent, right?
Truly
That's what that was.
independent.
Okay, truly independent.
Yes.
And the difference between that and a Kim Free house is Kim Free is really focused on their substance abuse recovery, right? Where you're sort of secluded and you can't really build that independence.
You cannot. I've literally seen, we have that we've worked with 3 different Kim Free houses, and all of their rules are different. Some are extremely strict, extremely strict. And because that's not my lane, I'm not here to bash that.
Yeah.
But it's like, how does she leave here and know that? How does she begin setting her boundaries? Because we know that there probably were some dysfunctionality with the boundaries. But if you make it so strict for her, then how does she go to the next level? That is just tough. That's like us raising our kids and we got our thumb this entire time, and then they go off to college.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that happens when you don't allow
a lot more
some
freedom. Yeah, once they have that.
Yes.
Happens,
And so that's what the independent living is going to teach. It's going to teach the skills that we've been talking about in the Let's Restart, the budgeting. It'll talk about setting the boundaries, visitors, and how does healthy, even the women that were in the house, because it'll be about 2 women. In some of the Kim-free houses right now, there can be like 4+ women per room. It'll only be 2 women per room. I was thinking 1 woman per room, but listening to volunteers, listening to the women that we serve, they're like, no, we're perfectly fine with 2 per room because it's a buddy system.
Accountability.
It really is.
Right.
And, I could keep talking about this, Ty. We had one of our women last year who attempted suicide. And we think that it may have been because she was living by herself.
Wow.
She had gotten out of, it was a step right after prison. Gosh, I forgot the term. And so that facility is no longer open. And so as they were closing that facility last May, we got her into an apartment because she had income, had a job and everything. So she totally qualified according to our qualifications. And so she was supposed to have been coming up to our office to see us and to get some clothes and just, to do some sister bonding.
Right.
And she didn't show up. And so that following, as a matter of fact, I was at McPherson visiting the ladies, and I got a call because you can't take your cell phone, inside a prison. And so my phone had just, when I turned it back on, I got back in my car, it was just crazy. And so we really think that if she had had an accountability partner, a buddy system, that it may not have happened.
Wow.
We're learning a lot, aren't we?
We really are. And learning how important that work is, and putting those things in place, like what you're trying to do with this, independent living house and
not trying,
SHEBuild.
what we're going to do.
Excuse me. What you're going to do. Yes.
Yes, what we're going to do.
What you're going to do. Yes, absolutely.
Because the women are asking for it.
Right.
The women that we are working with right now, leaving Kim-free houses, like, what do we do now, SHEBuild? Yeah. So they're making us step up our game a little bit higher, which is great.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it
pushing
is.
you so that you do better and help them. So,
Yeah.
Thank you again, Anika.
Thank you.
All right. If you've enjoyed this episode of the podcast, you can find all of our episodes of our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to consume your podcasts. There's also a video version on YouTube. If you would like to subscribe, please do. Please share these episodes with somebody that could benefit. If you heard Anika talk here today and she said something that was inspirational or something that somebody could really benefit from what she does, absolutely share this episode with them and let them know what's going on not this Saturday, but next Saturday, at the brunch for
Brunch and to Build.
Brunch and to Build.
Yes.
Sorry, I was like, I'm studying this. I'm going to memorize the words before I got here.
We're here. We're here together.
Right. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share your episodes, and we will see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.